Good evening, everybody. I'm Ellen Williams, Events Manager at Look, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event, EHCP Essentials, What Can I Do If I Want to Appeal? This event is especially for you parents navigating the complexities of education and healthcare plans. We know how overwhelming this process can feel, and together with friends from More Vision and Blatchington Court Trust, we are here to empower you with the knowledge and confidence to advocate for your child. Tonight, we're thrilled to welcome our expert speakers, Laura Hughes, CEO of More Vision, Sofa Hirsa, a advocacy specialist from the Blatchington Court Trust, and Georgie Bowen, a trainee barrister. This is the third and final session in our EHCP series, focusing on the legalities of refusals and appeals and how you can challenge decisions confidently. We aim to break down the complexities, highlight your rights as parents, and guide you through this critical process. We'll begin with a presentation and follow with a Q&A. So please feel free to share your questions and comments in the chat as we go. Tonight's session is being recorded, and the resources along with the presentation and the handouts will be available on our website afterwards. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now I'm going to hand over to Laura and Georgie and Sophie.
Thank you, Ellen, and also a really big thank you to Look for enabling us to deliver this, because you've been, Look do such amazing work bringing families together for this kind of thing, and it's so important. We couldn't really do this without you. And thank you also to Georgie, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, and Sophie. Many of you will have seen Sophie and her colleague Lynn, who delivered the last two of these sessions. So we had sessions about how to apply for an EHCP and what makes a good EHCP for children with visual impairments. I'm Laura Hughes. I'm the CEO of More Vision. We are a charity in the far southwest of England, and we provide support for families in Devon, Cornwall, and those who live in Somerset and Dorset who want to travel across as well. We provide a wide range of services, activities, family support, crisis funding. But one of the increasingly big parts of the work we do is educational advocacy. And it's so important. We always say that, 4 hours of abseiling with More Vision on a Saturday is really good for your child's confidence and health. But if they're spending 25 or 30 hours a week in school, and that's not going well, that 4 hours isn't going to mean quite as much. I've been in this post for, I've been with More Vision for 18 years. It's a charity I set up, and I'm also the parent of I'm not going to call her a child, a young lady with a vision impairment. And we went through very much of what I'm sure many of you are still going through now, just over a decade ago, really, with her. And I was hoping by now, a decade later, things would be better, but I'm not really sure they are. Like I say, I'm joined by Sophie from Blatchington. She's I think you're probably the senior advocacy officer at Blatchington Court Trust, Sophie. They do a fantastic job down in Sussex. I say down, I suppose it is down for most of us, isn't it? On educational advocacy. And also Georgie Bowen, who has worked as a paralegal for the last 18 months, and she's now a trainee barrister. She's also, on top of that, she's training in Send Law with IPSIA. And she's really interested in how she may be able to support families of children with visual impairment in the future. So I'm just going to let Georgie say a few words, if that's okay.
Hi everyone, thanks Laura. As Laura mentioned, I'm training as a barrister at the moment. I'm doing the bar course, and I'm volunteering with IPSI. I'm just finishing that training up at the moment. But I just wanted to do a bit of a call out really, because I do have quite limited capacity, but I might be able to help with practical advocacy support in certain situations. So I know Laura's going to go in a lot of depth about what kind of decisions you'll be able to appeal. But if you're in the particular situation where your child has been refused a needs assessment for an EHC plan, and recently, so in less than the last 2 months, I might be able to help with your case and putting your case to the tribunal. So I mean, Laura will go over that in a lot more depth about how that works. But I just wanted to do an initial call out at the start that if you are in that situation where your child has been refused even just the first hurdle, which is that needs assessment to get the plan, please do get in touch with Look at their general email, which is info@look.org.uk. And then they might be able to put us in touch if I can help in your situation. I don't want to overpromise. I've got quite limited capacity, but I would love to see if I can help in your situation. So I'll just hand back to Laura, but I just wanted to flag that out at the outset that if that is you, and you have been refused that needs assessment, I might be able to help. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Georgie. I can't think of a better offer of support other than possibly cloning you and having, you know, one of you in every local authority in the country. But that's really good. So we're going to have a look. There's one thing I want to say is that everything I'm saying today is to do with the law in England. The laws in Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland are quite different. In some ways and very similar in other ways, but you can't, anything I say today may have a very strong link with what's happening in the other countries, but it won't be the same. I will be giving some, at the end, I'll be giving some links for support in the other countries. So there may be a lot in this which is still very valuable for you, but it might not be quite as much as you'd have to check everything because this is very much English law. So we're looking at EHCPs and how to appeal. So we've got so many questions. We've got what? We've got, you know, what can you appeal? Who do you appeal to? Where are things going well? Where aren't things going well? How many of these appeals are made? How many of them are successful? And why? Why are so many EHCP assessments and you know, issues of EHCPs and all the other things to do with EHCPs? Why are so many of them difficult to get? So there's lots of reasons why. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to have a look at, sorry, I'm moving things on my screen around because I can't see the full screen of all the Zoom things, but we're going to have a look at what you can and can't challenge at tribunal. And it's really worth knowing because there are bits that you can't challenge. So the things you can challenge at a tribunal are your local authority. So everywhere you see LA, it's local authority. Your local authority's refusal to assess or reassess for an EHCP, their refusal to issue an EHCP, that's post-assessment. You can appeal the contents of your child's EHCP, a refusal to amend an EHCP following assessment or reassessment, and you can also appeal if they are ceasing your child's or planning to cease your child's EHCP. This is something we'll talk about in more detail later on. Really more relevant, it tends to be more relevant to children as they get to sort of 16 and 18, but it can happen at other times as well. What you can't challenge at tribunals is equally important to know. You can't directly challenge the support that your child is receiving if they don't have an EHCP, and that's why it's important if you feel your child isn't getting the right support that they need to really be looking at getting them an EHCP if that's the way forward. Because without the EHCP, you can go through other means of challenge to the school, but you can't actually challenge it by a tribunal. You can't challenge through tribunal the way the school or local authority are giving help in your child's EHCP. Though again, we'll look later on at alternatives to that. I actually spent the whole of today at a disabilities discrimination tribunal appeal case, which is quite different from these tribunals, but there are other means that you can do to complain about what's happening, and it was successful, by the way. You can't challenge at a tribunal the decisions about personal budgets. You can't challenge the failure to meet the timescale or deadlines for the EHCP processes, which I know are a huge problem. But again, this is just what you can't challenge at these tribunals, these things called send tribunals. There are other means to challenge these, which we will come on to later. And you also can't at tribunal challenge transport to school or college unless it includes a specific issue about the school named, and that's part of the issue. But we will be looking at other ways to address these, as I say. So the next question is where are these things needing to be challenged? I love this slide. There's a really great website, which will be in the links, and it'll be on the packs that you've already got, called Special Needs Jungle. You can access it either via their Facebook page or their website. They are one of the best people for looking at all areas of disability and what's actually happening within the law and provision. This is their 2024 Hall of Shame, and it shows in the left-hand column, it shows the local authorities most likely to refuse an EHCP needs assessment, bearing in mind that the average is 24%. You can see that if you lived in Barnsley, it's pretty well double that. And going down the list, I think one of Sophie's areas is at 41%, which is very high. That means 41% of children who apply for an EHCP assessment are turned down. Those most likely to actually refuse an EHCP following assessment. And again, that's, well, I'm not very proud to see that Devon is in the top of that list, because that's one of my areas. And then on the right-hand side, we can see the local authorities who are least likely to meet the 20-week EHCP deadline. And Devon is also, well, Cornwall is actually also one of my areas. I actually had to write to Cornwall recently and say, it's now 59 weeks. What are you doing? So you may not be in these areas. You may be in one of the few areas which is within the average, which is good, because but there must be areas which are above average, and it's good to be positive about those. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the ones that are so far below. So that's the wheres. How many? I don't want to do too much kind of mathematical stuff, but it's actually really, really, really important to know, because it's actually really, really positive about how, how much these things work. So if you look at actually this slide on the left-hand side, you can see that when you request an EHCP, a child to have an assessment for an EHCP, 76% of children are assessed and 24% aren't. So it's still quite a poor figure. But if you can get that assessment done, 88% of them are then converted into a full EHCP, and that's much higher. So it really proves that it's absolutely worth doing it. 100%, it's worth doing it. And once the EHCP is, like I said, once that assessment is done, 94.9% of local authorities will actually issue them. So it's really worth doing that first challenge. If you can get past that first hurdle of getting the assessment, and actually, this is the one Georgie was talking about, which is why we've actually advised Georgie to focus on this. This is the easiest one. The assessing, challenging an assessment is the easiest thing to do for people helping you or for you yourself. Whereas once you get that done, you've got a very, very high chance of getting that EHCP for your child. So it's really worth staying positive about all of this. Who you can appeal to is really important as well. You can appeal to the Send Tribunal, and they will always offer you mediation first. And I'm going to look at mediation in more detail in a while. It is in many cases worth doing. In some cases you may not feel it is, but we can look at the pros and cons of that later.